Humans have all crossed over to the locations of the 100-ton giant fish. Outside is a world of ocean with no land. The giant fish will swallow dangerous marine creatures. Therefore, humans must continuously evolve to survive. At this moment, the giant fish has just finished eating. I walked towards the wooden foundation. I planned to transport the sea flowing into its stomach. But suddenly, I heard a sound slicing through the air behind me. I turned around to look. I found a blurry figure in front of me. In the next moment, my chest felt a sharp pain. Blood flowed from my chest. The armor protected me from fatal injuries. The blurry object was also knocked away. But I had no time to pay attention to my body, because several slicing sounds appeared around me. So, I quickly ran to the storage cabinet on the wooden platform. With a thought, I put the spiked armor into my equipment slot. Then I immediately clicked to craft a new one and put it on. I dashed forward. I quickly raised my arm, because a large knife appeared in my hand. In the next moment, I collided with the blurry object. A spark flew up instantly. The blurry object was knocked back, but I had no time to celebrate, because an attack from the other side had already reached me. So, I quickly raised one arm. A wooden shield appeared in my hand. With a loud bang, the blurry object got stuck on it. At this moment, I finally saw the general appearance of this thing. It was a vibrating object shaped like a flying saucer. But now there was no time for detailed study. Because two more slicing sounds came from around me, I immediately threw away the iron sword. The ground shifted. 10 materials appeared in the storage cabinet behind me. Because I appeared in front of myself, it turned into a wooden door. In the next moment, the other two disc-shaped objects all stopped on top. They were stuck tightly, and I still didn't let my guard down. I listened carefully to the sounds around me, until I confirmed there were no other creatures. Then I lowered the shield and the wooden door. I took off my chest armor. I took out the hemostatic gel I made yesterday from the cabinet. At this moment, my chest was also covered in blood. Then I used spring water to wash the wound on my clothes. Next, I applied the hemostatic gel. The wound was instantly sealed. The hemostatic gel worked immediately. Finally, I wrapped it with a hemostatic bandage again. Only then did I finally breathe a sigh of relief. After washing the bloodstains off my clothes and putting them on, I picked up the wooden shield. I carefully studied the butterfly-like creature on it. It was overall round. It had 4 legs beneath it for cutting, surrounding the central circular opening. Then I opened the biological encyclopedia. Razor butterfly worm food type. Blood. A parasite residing within giant organisms. It can easily take a person's life with each breath. The body can be used to craft what I've just introduced. I felt a chill run down my spine. The spearhead worm has only appeared for a few days. Now, a more dangerous parasite has arrived, and it's so small in size, it's hard to detect when it attacks. The spearhead worm needs seawater to unleash its full strength. But the razor butterfly worm is the opposite. In seawater, it lacks a foothold. It cannot unleash its incredible speed and jumping ability. Thus, it will only attack when the seawater recedes. At this moment, I couldn't help but sigh. The stomach space of this giant fish is becoming increasingly dangerous. Then I killed all these razor butterfly worms. Then I stored them in the cabinet, keeping them for future serration use. Next, I began transporting seaweed. And this time was of the essence. I had just finished transporting. The giant fish's second round of feeding began. Seawater surged in. I remained alert, watching for any movements in the water. I saw a flesh-colored, elongated body rolling on the water's surface. It was a spearhead worm. At the same time, I saw the same abnormal attacks as before. At this moment, my brows furrowed deeply. It's truly misfortune upon misfortune. This time, both dangerous parasites have appeared. If I wait for the seawater like before, it will definitely be dangerous. If the spearhead worm and razor butterfly worm attack at the same time, at this moment, my heart sank. So I made a bold decision. While the razor butterfly worms are still inactive, I would take the initiative to go into the water and deal with the spearhead worms first. And so I unleashed all my strength. After taking a deep breath, I jumped into the water like a hungry tiger. Before the spearhead worm could react, I swung the iron knife and hacked away furiously. For a moment, seawater splashed everywhere. Soon, the surroundings were stained with color. and the spearhead worm was finally cut in half by me. However, the severed part was not fatal, so it was still frantically struggling to escape. But how could I let it have its way? After the previously injured spearhead worm escaped, it opened a bleeding hole on the stomach wall. I didn't want the same thing to happen again, so it was because the body was severed in half. The other worms in the water were completely unable to contend with me. In the end, it can only be resolved through painful screams and struggles. I hurriedly dragged his body up onto the wooden foundation. I placed it into the aquarium with the ruined coral. I couldn't let all these bugs go to waste. Doing all this has drained a lot of my energy, so I hid back in the resting area to regain my strength. I prepared to deal with the razor butterfly worms after the tide receded. During this time, I kept a close watch on the water's surface, but I discovered an unexpected situation. The razor butterfly worms had actually gathered together. I was taken aback. Could it be because of the blood of the spearhead worms? After all, razor butterfly worms also feed on blood. Seeing this, I felt a rush of joy. This is an opportunity to catch them all at once. Since razor butterfly worms can't quickly rotate their bodies in the sea, they have no other offensive capabilities. So I stepped out of the resting area. I slowly entered the seawater. Then I raised my knife and brought it down. I struck one of their bodies. So the nagging worm immediately sensed danger, but their 8-legged structure isn't suited for moving in water. So their escape speed was quite slow. How could I easily let this weakness go? I chased them down with a flurry of cuts. Soon, all 5 razor butterfly worms were taken care of. Then I retreated back to the foundation. I waited until the seawater completely receded. I finally breathed a sigh of relief once I confirmed there were no other dangers. My recent experience also revealed the weakness of the razor butterfly worms. As long as I bleed in the seawater, I can attract them all over and then catch them all at once. But this method has a problem. Where will the blood come from? It's unlikely that I'll encounter spearhead worms every time. The simplest solution would be to use the blood of a giant fish. But of course, I wouldn't do that. After some thought, I finally came up with a solution. I realized I could use the body of a woolly worm. I could just store their blood in barrels. Now I have 2 guilds in my hands. One is brand new. The other is the one I directed yesterday with Jiang Haitao's worm. I just need them to have the members turn in the bodies of the spearhead worms. Those who turn in the bodies will earn them guild contribution points. Next, I was nearing my last feeding. I finally didn't encounter any aggressive creatures. I opened the world system in the top right corner. The death toll surged again today. Over 2 million people have already been lost. I wonder how many more will be added tomorrow. Afterward, I contacted Zhang Haitao and Chen Xing. I asked them to gather spearhead worms for me. I also informed them about the razor butterfly worms and their weaknesses. I told them to be careful. This information can serve as a notification to the guild members. It'll inform those loyal members with significant contributions. Now that everything was finished, I planned to get some rest. But at that moment, the system suddenly chimed in my mind. Ding! The distance to the Leviathan worm has reached 10,000 meters. I am about to leave the spawning sea area. The novice protection phase has ended. According to the current speed, in 1 day, the illusionary Leviathan will cross the boundary sea and enter the deep blue sea. Upon hearing this news, I suddenly remembered. My expression froze as well. These past 10 days for me, it's no exaggeration to say they were fraught with danger. But now the system tells me I'm still in the protection phase. How dangerous would the deep blue sea be without protection? I woke up to find it was the last day of crossing the sea. I was surprised to find that the giant fish hadn't moved at all today. I sensed something in its thoughts. I felt puzzled. Had it discovered something valuable? It didn't even eat. After a while, the esophageal diaphragm opened. A surge of seawater rushed in. I perked up, watching for dangerous creatures in the water. In the end, I found nothing. And I don't know why this seawater felt so dense. It didn't feel right. I realized there was nothing at all this time. However, there was a fish egg left on the ground, and a white sphere the size of an ostrich egg. What is this? I cautiously moved closer. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be a fish egg. After feeling it, I opened it. The biological encyclopedia. Big head fish, length 20 meters, weight 100 tons. Food type carnivorous. Introduction. A predatory fish that likes to hide in the sand. A fish that likes to hunt by hiding in the sand. It possesses a certain level of intelligence. Its flesh is fibrous. Its teeth are edible. They can be used to make weapons. I was a bit surprised. I was touching a fish egg, but the introduction was about an adult fish, and the edible flesh was deeply enticing, because in previous biological introductions, whenever this phrase was mentioned, they all had the potential to increase attributes. I gently tapped open the fish egg's shell. Then I let the mass of eggs flow out. An unprecedented fishy smell hit me instantly, but I forced myself to swallow it all. The moment the prompt appeared, indicating my intelligence increased by 1 from the big head fish egg, my brain suddenly felt lighter than ever. This feeling was magical. I never expected something so significant to follow shortly after. Moreover, I felt a stronger control over my body. Suddenly, the giant fish's thoughts echoed again. Oh no, it seems like there's more good stuff. I was momentarily stunned. Could this be a supply before a big battle? As I awaited the giant fish to swallow the good stuff, I glanced at the system interface. The death toll had risen significantly again. By today, the total death toll was estimated to reach 10 million. And I was still in the protection phase. I quickly crafted 2 portions of Ruin's coral powder. I sent them to Zhang Haitao and Chen Xing. After all, they're my own people. I can't let them down. After a while, the fish swallowed seawater again. It was still murky. Once it receded, it left behind a lot of sediment. Still no large creatures. I stepped down from the foundation again. I saw 5 smooth, jade-like shells buried in the sand. The white jade clam measures 20 centimeters in length. Weight, 8,000 grams. Microbial, a shell made of white jade. Its flesh is delicious. Edible. White jade can be absorbed by the Illusory Leviathan, thus it grows into scales. I felt a surge of joy. Another practical substance, and I might be able to grow scales on one. If that's true, then the giant fish's survival ability would greatly improve. Afterwards, I carefully checked each one. Then I managed to pry open the white jade shell. It was tightly closed. I tried prying it open dozens of times to no avail. Helpless, I resorted to hacking at it forcefully. Sparks flew. After dozens of strikes, it finally shattered. I eagerly took out a piece of flesh as big as my palm. I immediately took a big bite. It was from the white jade clam. Strength increased by 1. I felt a rush of joy. Then I used the same method to open the second one and ate it. Unfortunately, my strength did not increase again. In the following time, the giant fish seemed to be searching for something. Then the stone opened up again. This time, a silver-edged supply box containing the stone foundation blueprint flowed in. I gasped in surprise. Without hesitation, I checked the required materials. The stone foundation requires 100 stones. I decisively clicked to craft it. A cubic stone block, 1 meter on each side, appeared before me. It looked very sturdy. Current status. I decisively crafted 5 more. Then, with a thought, I transformed all the wooden foundations into blue light for decomposition. I replaced them with stone foundations. Then I opened a silver-edged supply box. I obtained 20 iron nails. My eyes lit up instantly. Iron is indeed rare. Over the previous days, I had only obtained 5 in total. Truly, it's a silver-edged supply box. A private message came through. The president of the Leviathan Guild, Zhuo Junyang, has disturbed you. Our guild wants to obtain one of those objects, the shuttlefish. I don't have any valuable blueprints to trade with you. Yesterday, I found a card called the Flying Rainbow Locator card. I can't use it, but I know this card will be useful in the future, so I want to trade it with you. Is that okay? I couldn't help but smile when I saw the message. Previously, there was a food called crimson kelp in the encyclopedia that accelerated the growth of crucian carp. I believe this card is meant to guide me to that sea area, so I immediately chose to trade. Then a prompt appeared in my mind. Using the Flying Rainbow Locator card will allow me to locate the Flying Rainbow Sea. Then I used it immediately, but still nothing happened. But I was still uncertain about what was happening, so I began to feel uneasy about the fish's survival. Shortly after, the crucian carp swallowed another supply box and earned 5 gold coins. It can increase the growth speed of golden seaweed. At that moment, my eyes lit up. The value of seaweed goes without saying, but the fact that it only grew 20 centimeters made me quite anxious. Now I've finally obtained its fertilizer. Afterward, the giant fish swallowed another silver-edged supply box. After opening the supply box, I received 5 silver coins. But what use are silver coins? I don't find them useful at all, so we collected them anyway. After a while, I felt the giant fish suddenly stop moving. At the same time, its thoughts echoed. I discovered another treasure cave. I was immediately excited upon hearing that, so I wondered if I should retrieve it. I quickly gathered my armor and weapons. Just like last time, I swallowed into the esophagus. During this time, I communicated with Zhang Haitao. I told him to be ready to support me with items, but I hadn't gone far when the esophageal diaphragm suddenly closed. I was taken aback. What's going on? Although I knew the fish wouldn't harm me, the closed environment still made me anxious and uneasy. And the next moment, the entire space shook violently. The ground began to slowly rise and tilt. It seemed the giant fish was lifting up. The giant fish suddenly rose and tilted. Then it blocked the cave's entrance. I steadied myself. I directly approached one of its membranes, and the surroundings here were very smooth. I didn't know how to climb up. However, after a while, the problem was solved. I saw a large amount of seawater pouring into the esophagus. Soon, it rose to my neck. I was startled. I quickly stowed away my heavy armor. I stepped in the water to rise with the water level. And so, before long, I left the esophagus. I entered the giant fish's mouth. Then I saw things that had been discarded outside. Furthermore, I noticed that the ground had something. I found this cave was different from the last one. It was more spacious, and it sloped downwards. It was a few meters off the ground. Was there something above? Yes, I was in the air, and I put on a piece of armor. Then, with caution, I entered with an iron sword and a wooden shield. After walking a short distance, I sensed a stench of decay in the air. The deeper I went, the more intense the smell became, and we came one by one, and there was no exit once we arrived. I cautiously approached. Then I peeked in, but then my heart skipped a beat from fright. In the next moment, I recklessly dropped what I was holding and ran away. After running for a while, I noticed what I was carrying, and it seemed the monster wasn't pursuing me. At that moment, the giant fish's thoughts echoed. How did the little one get out? There are still things left inside. I instantly perked up. My fear washed away. It seems that I didn't have anything threatening around me anymore. There was nothing in the cave that could threaten me. So I began to feel courageous. I slowly walked back. Then I bravely turned the corner, only to discover that this giant creature had actually begun to rot. The skin of the creature's surface had started to decay. Its 2 lantern-like eyes had shriveled up. Only its exposed sharp teeth remained intact, and they gleamed with a chilling light. Then I saw the biological encyclopedia. The knife-toothed eel measures 72 meters in length. Weight, 160 tons. Food type, carnivorous. Carnivorous. It hides in caves, ready to ambush passing creatures. Its sharp teeth can penetrate the bodies of creatures. Its flesh is firm and edible. Its fresh sprouts can be used as weapons. I was startled. If I encountered a live crucian carp, I wouldn't be able to handle it. Next, I planned to extract its teeth to make weapons. So I started banging on it with a stone. I thought it would take some effort, but to my surprise, one tooth fell off quickly. I picked it up to examine it. The tooth's root resembled a knife handle. It seemed like it could be used as a weapon directly. Seeing this, I felt a surge of joy. In one breath, I extracted 3. I pulled out 30 teeth in total, and sent them to Zhang Haitao for storage. Then I left that corner. After walking over 100 meters, I finally reached the end. Suddenly, gold flickered ahead. I took a look. I saw a stone platform. On it was a pure gold supply box. My eyes sparkled immediately. Last time, it was just a gold-edged supply box. Yet it had given me 3 rare blueprints. I hurried over to open it. A burst of golden light radiated from within. I obtained the ultimate formula for the Illusory Leviathan, which filled me with a sense of wonder. I had no idea what this formula was for, but the word ultimate intrigued me, and it came with a certain ease. I decisively checked the contents of the formula, but I was left dumbfounded. Aside from the introduction of the first material, I had no clue about the rest. I thought I should have a better understanding, so I checked the first formula. I realized I couldn't produce this at all right now. Helplessly, I stored the formula away. I prepared to leave, but suddenly a question arose in my mind. Was it too much to have obtained such a precious golden box? I felt a bit uneasy. Moreover, I'm an eel. I should be protecting what's inside this golden box. Yet I don't know why it perished. That's what allowed me to take advantage. What could have caused that giant creature to die silently? Could it have been some large creature from the deep blue sea? Seeing me, I felt uncontrollably anxious. Before long, I reached the entrance. After removing my gear, I jumped into the giant fish's mouth, and it knew I had returned, so it slowly opened the esophageal diaphragm. The water level in the esophagus gradually lowered, allowing me to safely return to its stomach. After checking around, I found that thankfully I hadn't been affected by the tilt here. Only some seawater spilled out from the small aquarium and seaweed planting box. And shortly after waking up the next day, a series of system prompts echoed in my mind. I felt that other survivors had first entered the perilous deep blue sea. Then, the world system notified me. I obtained the world's only title. The Pioneer title grants free allocation of attributes and the ability to return at any time. If I lose my lead, the title will be transferred. Then the system prompt echoed again. Ding! Please use the Steel Leviathan bug exterminator quickly. Otherwise, you will be hunted by the Steel Leviathan. At that moment, I was stunned. Then I opened the character attribute panel. I saw that the title Pioneer had been added next to my name. Then I added 5 points to my strength. I then tried to figure out how to return. I discovered that I could just click on that title. I was truly astonished, because my attribute manipulation was very strong yesterday. When facing danger, I could allocate everything to speed to escape. If I couldn't escape, I could immediately allocate everything to strength to fight back. Now, I could manage my attributes one by one. That's when I noticed the character evaluation section. I was stunned for a moment because our oxygen-reducing bacteria were sick. I recalled my experiences over the past 2 days. The cause of the infection must have been entering the treasure cave yesterday. Upon closer thought, the reason the massive knife-toothed eel had no external wounds should be due to this bacteria. This explains everything. And now I didn't know what to do. After all, this bacteria can even kill a giant creature. So I wasn't sure about my own condition. I constantly thought about the possibility that I had been infected yesterday. And today, I felt no discomfort at all. So this oxygen bacteria shouldn't be particularly malignant. Currently, without a treatment method, I can only endure it for now. So I allocated all 5 points to my constitution. Temporarily setting this matter aside, I retrieved the Steel Leviathan bug exterminator from the storage. It had a 3-minute countdown displayed. I knew that once these 3 days passed, the Steel Leviathan would no longer be able to resist. It would start hunting down the crucian carp. At that moment, I couldn't help but feel nervous. My giant fish was only a few days old, and now 2 highly aggressive parasites had appeared, so I couldn't imagine how many parasites a leviathan would have after a year without cleaning. How many parasites could be present in its stomach? At this moment, I truly felt a sense of impending doom. Suddenly, the giant fish's thoughts echoed in my mind. I finally found it. How terrifying. I need to hurry back. I was taken aback. I couldn't understand what was happening. Then I heard the system prompt again. Entering the spawning sea area. I was stunned again. How did it come back again? Not long after, I soon figured it out. We must be close to a safe spawning area to rest. And indeed, as I expected, it stopped moving after returning to the boundary sea. But what I didn't expect was that it suddenly opened the esophageal diaphragm and let in a large amount of seawater. How do I get back? I saw a dark figure. I realized this must be what found me during my previous adventure. I quickly opened the treasure chest and obtained a dueling circle. The method allows you to designate any survivor for a duel. If you kill your opponent, you can obtain all their resources. At that moment, my mood began to darken, because this deep blue treasure box should be accessible to everyone. That means many people will have dueling circles in the future. Thus, there will definitely be cases of mutual plundering. This is not a dueling dog at all. It's merely a switch for greed and desire. Now I just hope that other survivors have some self-awareness and don't come looking for a duel with me. But then I found this thought quite laughable, because there will surely be those who want to take a risk against me, and there will be quite a few of them. But fortunately, I'm currently 3 times ahead of the other survivors, and I have plenty of time to develop myself. Then, more resources continued to be obtained from the deep blue treasure box. I received a video of mineral water, a video of canned meat. I felt a rush of joy, because this size contained both chicken and beef. While others couldn't find ice in this world, I obtained 200,000 seaweed. I immediately revealed something useful. Each storage cabinet can only hold 100,000 items. With this deep blue treasure box, I no longer have to worry about insufficient storage space. After that, nothing much happened. I crafted 2 wooden foundations and came back. Then we came together, and this gathering was quite nice. Though my body felt a bit fatigued, it seemed my physical condition was at 20 points. I was determined to address this issue, and this thought echoed in my mind. Entering the deep blue sea, the giant fish continued swimming forward, and my heart began to race. What dangers lurked in the deep blue sea? What made the giant fish flee so decisively yesterday? Suddenly, I heard a huge buzzing in my ears, and it seemed to be getting closer. I felt my position in space violently shift. I was thrown out sideways. Fortunately, the landing was soft, so I didn't get hurt. The violent shaking made my head spin. Bang, bang, bang. Another series of muffled explosions echoed. It sounded like bombs exploding in the water, and the explosions were happening right next to me. This almost made me faint. If my constitution hadn't reached 200,000, I might have been blown away. Then I heard a prompt about escaping my limit. Escape. Although I didn't know what was happening outside, it wasn't hard to guess. It must be some giant creature hunting the giant fish. The roaring explosions sounded again, and they became increasingly intense. Then I was thrown out again. I knew that the giant creature was attacking. At that moment, my heart raced in my throat. The reason I was thrown out was clearly that the giant fish was twisting its body to avoid the attacks. Then I held tightly to the wooden pile beneath the foundation. And now, I could do nothing. I could only pray that I could escape the chase. I was caught in the violent shaking, trying to evade the pursuit of a larger creature. I clung tightly to the pile, hoping to escape safely from the giant fish. Suddenly, its excited thoughts echoed. "We're almost there! We're almost there!" Seconds later, I heard a massive crash from behind the closed space. It was that creature crazily crashing into a hill. It seemed extremely unwilling. Not long after, I felt the giant fish's swimming speed slow down. The sound of the crashes became fainter. I thought to myself that it should be safe now. I also understood the earlier protection space had shielded me. I realized it wasn't protecting me. It protected the fish instead. Now, just entering a new sea area, it was immediately pursued by a giant creature for some time. The giant fish's thoughts echoed again. Oh no, I found it, and I immediately grew anxious. I hurriedly put on my gear and hid in a safe area, entered a new sea area. I guess the feeding stage of the giant fish might be more dangerous. Not long after, esophageal diaphragm opens. The seawater surged in. Come, come, come. Unable to, my water recedes. I saw 5 oval-shaped shells. One after another, they poked their soft bodies out from inside, just like a snail. My dive must have consumed the giant fish. I immediately became angry, then hurriedly went down, raised and lowered. I saw a huge fog. He suddenly retracted his body, hit hard on the shell. A loud bang sounded. I feel as if I have struck a stone, and that shell only has a shallow groove. I was taken aback. I didn't expect it to be so hard. Then I hardened my heart, chopped continuously 5 or 6 times. This finally chopped and killed the entity inside that shell. Then I checked the biological encyclopedia. The body length of the bone armor leech is 30 centimeters. Weight 10 kilograms. Food type, blood. I slightly relaxed after making armor from the hard-shelled parasites with hard exoskeletons. Because the introduction did not mention that this parasite is aggressive. Then I took theirs. Then it destroyed the hard shell that could be used to make machines. I took out a piece of wood with iron nails from the locker of the last machine, opened the drawing interface, and clicked to make an iron water. Then came a more foggy front, directly stabbed into his rise. The beetle inside was crushed and died by me. Just repeat this several times. I finally obtained 12 complete sets of bone armor, put them into the locker. Then I started to move the seaweed. Then I began to ponder. Because the mealtime is much later than usual due to the distance. It is mostly because he was just being chased, therefore missed many places with food, and this situation may occur many times in the future. So I decided to take the opportunity through Jiang Haitao and Chen Xin in the future. Then the bushes I collected, thus will be a feast. After all, only when you are full can you have the strength to escape from being chased. 1 hour later, I will move all the seaweed. As for after digestion, then begin to continue swimming down. Entered the stage of the material box he swallowed today. But not long after, he suddenly shouted. Clearly carries anger in the tone. Detestable. Don't run. I haven't reacted to what happened yet. The entire space may suddenly turn over. At this moment, the supply box that was just discovered suddenly got up. So I caught up and swung that creature's tail. After the stomach regains calm, I saw the diaphragm of the esophagus open. It is the giant fish guiding me outside. So I put on my gear and walked into the esophagus, but as soon as it arrived in his mouth, it gave him a big scare. Because a super large eye full of bloodshot veins is staring at me intently. But soon I calmed down. Since the crucian carp can let me out with peace of mind, that means there is temporarily no danger from the outside. So I bravely stepped forward and came down. Now we have been completely slapped to death by the fish. He is covered in huge scales, reflecting a faint metallic sheen. Then I checked the biological sex of the white fish. The food type of 8 meters in length, meat-eating, a small fish species that likes to devour. Edible meat quality. Scales can be used to make armor. See the 3 words edible. My eyes suddenly lit up. I don't know what kind of line it can give me. So I guess the supply box must have been swallowed by the white fish. So I am in a hurry with the time I opened. I am almost back to get the iron sword. After driving to retrieve the iron sword, I looked at the hard scales of the white mullet that can be used to make armor. I just knew that opening his abdomen would definitely yield something. So I added all the attributes here to strength. But the next second, I started coughing uncontrollably. The decline in physical fitness has caused the oxygen-rich bacteria to affect me. But now I can't care about so much. I raised the iron sword and slashed down fiercely. The body of the white fish was instantly cut open. Then I quickly added the 5 points of free attributes back to my physique. The body has finally returned to normal. And at this moment, I also realized my physical condition is obviously getting worse now. My white fish's abdomen bled a lot, and accompanied by many internal organs that were rejected and smashed. After a while, the supply box also flowed out. I was filled with disappointment. Did not expect it to be just an ordinary material. However, now there is this white dragon that has undergone additional inspection. So I cut it off. Finished my fish physique. I am filled with joy in my heart. Now the impact of raising bacteria will be even smaller on me. However, what I actually hope to increase is strength. Because there are only 2 days left until the deadline for the Steel Armor Leviathan Pest Control Circle. If you want to survive the attack of a large number of parasites when the time comes, you must have enough strength. Then I cut off a part of the scales of the white carp and put them into the supply box. Then returned to the unclosed space to sleep and rest. The next day, the giant fish finally didn't suffer from the pursuit of large livestock like yesterday. Finally proceeded smoothly. At this moment, I also breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that this deep blue sea will still give people some breathing time. Then I cautiously observed the rising. Then I in my life. Then our bugs, a few razor bugs. From now on, I now say they no longer pose any danger. Therefore, at this moment, I instead have a sense of intimacy. Then I was like before. First, jump into the water to bring the spearhead worm over, then successfully attracted razor moths to gather using his blood. Finally, catch them all in one net. At this moment, I think this is too easy. Then I turned around and planned to climb onto 10 big chickens, but was instantly stunned, because I saw that the foundation had all turned into matter. After that, I generated a large amount of distance, and I immediately turned my head but found that it was very calm inside. Then a feeling suddenly arose in my heart after that. Then I realized that I seemed to be trapped in some kind of illusion. So without hesitation, I went towards my own leg. At this time, during the process of eating, a stream that can induce hallucinations flows into the stomach.
大腿强行让自己清醒过来时，
I saw a soft-bodied creature stuffing several tentacles into my mouth. It seems to be conveying something. At the same time, two other tentacles pressed down hard on my head. I felt a chill in my heart. Swinging a heavy iron knife fiercely, cut off those tentacles. Then hurriedly used a finger to poke at the throat. I spit out something that entered the body of livestock. Immediately after, a lump of mucus was vomited out by me. All I saw above were densely packed insect eggs. Extremely disgusting. Then I continued to induce vomiting incessantly. Want to gang the eggs of the worms in the stomach. Suddenly, a piercing sound wave rang out. My spirit is once again in a daze. The surrounding environment has changed its appearance again. I am currently standing in the sea. There is a caterpillar not far in front. The worm appears and disappears in the dim environment. I immediately scolded loudly, knowing that this is just another fantasy, so I quickly concentrated and broke free once again. Next time I won't care whether there is still something inside or not. Now my big knife is charging towards that soft-bodied creature. But the closer you get to it, my consciousness became more chaotic. I don't care about anything, swinging wildly with eyes closed. Whether it hit or missed, after swinging the knife more than a dozen times continuously, my consciousness is finally no longer confused. Then the soft-bodied creatures were also chopped into pieces, and I exhausted all my strength. Then slowly retreated to the side of the stone foundation, breathing heavily in big gasps. Then I opened the biological encyclopedia to take a look. Illusory Dream Sea Champion Bug. Body length 3 meters, weight 40 kilograms, food type, blood. The parasite that resides within the giant organism ensnares humans in fantasies through its 55 tentacles. Then I started to implant into the human body, absorb human blood to accelerate growth, ultimately breaking out of the body. Body fluids can be regarded as having replaced me. I am also myself. I can't help but start to worry, because I'm not sure if I just cleared the insect eggs properly. So I will still not come out. I start to continue living. Then after a while, I was completely exhausted and stopped. Then I started to collect the experience of the dream sea turtle bug with a wooden barrel. Then it was just introduced that his experience can be used in the process after being replaced. I am still constantly being affected. Then because I felt a bit dry in my heart. So every time I just mentally checked out. Then I came out. I experienced it after the corpse. I saw an oval-shaped insect shell that was split in two again. Then I knocked with an iron big knife. Although this insect shell looks very thin, but the texture is very hard. Then I picked up half. Also didn't spend much effort. It is very light. Ding obtained the protective shell of the Dream Sea Leader bug. I was taken aback. I didn't expect this to be a material. However, I don't know what it is used for at the moment. So I put it into storage first. The backs of this. I am now some strange creature. And in the process of transporting seaweed, I have been thinking about whether the insect eggs have been cleaned out. Suddenly I thought that the character storage locker board might display my current status. So I hurriedly opened it, and then I saw that some had an infected reoxygenating bacteria. There are still parasitic larvae of the dream sea anemone in the body. Already has little time left to live. I sighed helplessly after watching. Surprisingly, it is a living organism that has really been infected. And also, I still haven't returned to the side of the locker, where I took out the anti-inflammatory medicine I got a few days ago. Although I know it is completely useless, but still swallowed a pill. Consider it a bit of psychological comfort for myself. Shortly after the seaweed was transported, the distance has begun the phase of swallowing the supply box, and after retreating, flow into an ordinary supply box ding. Obtain furnace blueprint. I know this furnace is naturally used for smelting metals, but the smelting process requires extremely high temperatures. It also means that a large amount of oxygen needs to be consumed. Not necessarily. The oxygen content in space is not much to begin with, although I have an algae oxygenation tank, but the oxygen produced definitely cannot support the consumption of a furnace. Moreover, harmful gases such as carbon monoxide may also be produced during the smelting process. And equally important is, smelting furnace requires oxygen, but I currently have no tools for living at all. After a lot of thinking, I found that it is temporarily impossible to smelt. Then we can only wait until the later stages of swallowing the materials into the supply box are over. I plan to go to sleep. And Jia Liwei's countdown to escape the wormhole has only about 20 hours left. Therefore, I must make all the preparations for war tomorrow.